I thought it was harmless flirting until my husband took me to court and won everything.
Financially ruined me in court because of a stupid kiss on a night out. I believe the saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer, applies to me because you really don't know what your enemies are up to. I got betrayed by someone I thought was my friend, and I haven't been the same ever since. I'm not okay right now, and I don't have any friends, which is why I want to share this story with everyone. Hey Redditors, my name is Chloe, and I am 26 years old. My husband, or should I say ex-husband now, Alex, is 28 years old. I believe I should start telling this story from the beginning of my life. I come from a poor family, and that's just it. We are a family of 4, and I have one younger sister, Sophia, who is currently 20 years old. There were so many difficulties growing up, especially from my younger years. When I turned 6, Sophia came into the world, but the crazy part is that she doesn't belong to my dad. My mom was a street food vendor. I don't know if there's another term for that, but she sold junk such as hot dogs and the likes in this cart she dragged around on the street. On the other hand, my dad worked as a janitor, so as you can already imagine, the money they were getting wasn't a lot, hence the reason I said our family was poor. So you could imagine the shock on my dad's face when he heard she was pregnant. I was still 5 years old when I heard them shouting. They say kids usually forget things when they're young, but in my case, it is different because I remember everything. I remember the story she told him on how it all happened. Okay, it's a bit vague, but you know the usual saying of, it was a silly mistake. She said she didn't want to get rid of the baby because she felt she was going to be special and change our lives. My dad couldn't believe what she said, and he said he couldn't stay with her anymore. The first few days, he came back home drunk and became violent, which made me cry every day. I don't know how 9 months came by so quickly, but I turned 6, and after, my mom gave birth to Sophia. Dad was not there, of course. He couldn't live with mom carrying another child, so he stopped coming home at a time. The one time he came home was for a divorce, 2 months after Sophia's birth. I remember my mom crying and reading a paper with the word divorce written on it. She signed the paper, and I wondered what it was that made her cry, but eventually as I grew up, I figured it out when Dad stopped coming home. Dad wasn't rich enough to file for custody, and I never thought he wanted to, since it was like a burden of my choice. I remember him kissing me on my forehead and saying that he loved me, and he was always going to be there for me. I don't know where he went, but the next day he came to pack his things when I was sleeping. Or at least that was what Mom said. It was just Mom, Sophia, and I that was left in this small house, and Mom struggled every day. Sure, she cheated on my dad, but she was still my mom that I loved, and Sophia was my sister. Mom was able to send me to school up until I finished high school by the time I was 18. I was also able to get a job as a babysitter or dog walker, anything that could give me money since I wanted to help Mom out with Sophia. Sophia was an angel, and Mom was not completely right about her changing our lives. But I love my sister. I was able to save enough and get admission into Florida State University, but I was a part-time student since I was also working. This is where things were going to go wrong, and I had no idea. But there's a reason I'm telling you the backstory of my life, because they are all connected. I was a people pleaser because I'd do anything to make people content with me, so they'd give me extra tips when I'm done. When I was a part-time student and also going to work, I did extra work to earn money. I offered to do people's assignments and I'll get paid for it. And yeah, that was how I met Alex. We weren't in the same major, but we were in the same year. He said he heard I did assignments and he gave me his assignments to do. It became a regular thing that happened a lot of times, and it was so helpful for me because he paid lots of money. I asked a friend of mine, Sheila, about him, and she told me that he came from a rich family and had lots of money. A year passed, and this continued until he came to me for a personal reason. He wasn't a serious person with studies, and he told me he hated reading. His grades were very low, and he didn't care because he wanted to get school done until his father told him he had to get high grades, or he wasn't going to get anything from him. Alex asked me to be his tutor, and he said he was going to pay me lots of money. This was a great opportunity for me, and I didn't complain when I saw the amount of dollars he offered. I accepted the tutor job immediately, and he told me I was going to be tutoring at his house. I said no because it didn't sound like something I was comfortable with. I told him and asked him if we could study at the library instead, and he agreed. We got to work almost immediately, and though we studied different majors, it was closely related, so tutoring him was not too difficult. I was always a straight A student. My mom made sure to remind me of the importance of education right from early childhood. and this played a huge part in my studies, as I was always at the library trying to learn new things whenever I wasn't working, and that contributed greatly to my academic success. Tutoring Alex was surprisingly not as difficult as I thought it would be because he was a really fast learner. And not only that, but he had a good memory as well. He was just not being serious with studies. Alex was super respectful and didn't try anything improper with me. In fact, we got along so well I didn't know when I got so comfortable around him, and I noticed he was comfortable around me. We would talk a lot about life and everything that had happened to us. Turns out Alex just never tried hard, and hence his grades. We were getting closer by the day, and Alex began to tell me more and more about himself until it felt like I knew him better than anyone else. I knew almost everything about him down to what he wanted to do and why he was currently putting in so much effort. He told me that he wanted to do well on his own and show his dad that he didn't need his wealth. Alex, like a lot of other men of his age, didn't have the best relationship with his father. He was pretty ambitious, far more ambitious than I thought, and I was beginning to love him for it. He told me that he wanted to start up a company, something huge, and together we started drawing out plans. Alex and I had everything covered. We had decided where the company would be in the next 5 years as at that time, and even set goals for each year too. At first I misjudged the situation. I thought Alex was just playing around until I saw him put it to action with my own eyes. He had gotten a small place and little equipment that could begin the work, and that was how our company began. Of course, final exams were coming up, and so we studied harder than ever and finished on a high note. We were so ecstatic, and I was so proud of everything we could achieve. Alex had met my mom and Sophia a few times already. He and Sophia got along so well, and I liked that. Alex asked me out a few weeks after we had graduated. I wouldn't say I didn't expect it, but it wasn't an easy decision for me to make. My friend Sheila had a huge crush on Alex, and I knew about it. She had told me more times than I could remember, but Alex never seemed interested in her. I accepted his proposal, and we officially started dating. Sheila was furious at me, and she didn't talk to me for some months. Alex was an attractive guy. I never looked at him that way until we started dating. I always saw him as my student, but things were different. He was now my boyfriend. He was taller than I was. I wasn't that tall anyways, but he was the perfect height. He always looked good, and I always thought it was because he had the best clothes to wear. But turns out he actually knew how to dress, smell, walk, and he was just perfect. I had never been a romantic type of person, but I knew women would give an arm and a leg to be with Alex. Alex had a friend, Frank, who majored in law, and he became the company's attorney and Alex's personal attorney too. Frank was a great lawyer and a close friend of Alex. They both had a very similar background, and so they got along really well. I did not know much about Frank at all, and I didn't really care to. We didn't see each other a lot, just days when we had a meeting that he had to be involved in. Alex and Frank would, however, hang out a lot. This continued for a year, and finally, Alex asked me to be his wife. It was a small surprise with only a few friends, and my mom and sister, but it worked. I agreed. And within the next year, we got married. Our company was doing quite well for itself and was beginning to make a name. Apart from being official partners, we were now also married, and things were looking great. We both understood our roles in making things work, and we did things without fault. 3 years passed since then, and our company had already surpassed all the goals we set for it, thanks mostly to Alex's effort. He was way more serious than I thought, and he definitely changed from the nonchalant boy who didn't care about school that I met all those years ago. He was driven, very driven. He really wanted to show his dad that he could do much better without him, and he was proving himself right, and as his partner, I can attest to that. As for our marriage life, things were normal. Nothing unusual ever happened. We had what you'd call a very average marriage. Nothing exciting ever happened, but we never argued, and that brought me great peace. We'd always talk and go on date nights and all, but aside from that, our marriage was very plain. We hadn't really put in much effort for a baby yet, and I think that sat right with us, because at the rate we both worked, a baby at that time wouldn't be convenient. There was always an event at the end of the year to celebrate the success of the company. It was not always the same thing we did. The first year was an official party, the second was a camp out, and last year it was going to be a beach party, but it was changed to a weekend hangout in a cabin. Our company had just over 40 employees, and so it could work. We rented 3 cabins uptown for ourselves, and everything was still going great up until that point. I remember the night before we left, Alex told me that he'd have preferred it if we just had the beach party. But since everyone else wanted this, he had to choose it. Our company had many young employees, and most of them were single, but a few of us were already married. Out of the 40 of us, 35 showed up. Some couldn't for one reason or the other, but as every year before that, Frank was present. Frank is definitely in his late 20s. He is dark-skinned and tall, taller than Alex. He has a good build and generally looks good. His voice gives him a presence too. Our employees present were mostly the ones fresh out of college/universities, and the few ones still in their finals. We prioritized hiring the younger set of people, and almost all our employees were young, just like Alex and I. During our hangout, there were different games like board games, consoles, group games, and everyone picked what they liked and did it. Growing up, I was never a party person. I always read books when my friends went to parties. The first party I attended was the first one hosted by our company, and so after living for 25 years at the time, this was only my third. I always heard the stories and how parties went wild, and all but never really cared much. At the previous events, nothing wild happened because of the type of events they were. This, though, felt different. It was only Friday night, and I could see everyone letting loose. They didn't seem like the organized and diligent workers we knew. Everyone was doing different things, and some ladies wore something very unethical. But I couldn't complain. It was a party after all. Friday night went by really slowly for me. It was all partying and dancing. I was on the fence floor, but I did not feel like I belonged because I couldn't even dance if I tried to. And I noticed pretty quickly that most people weren't really dancing, but they were being touchy and unethical instead. I left almost as soon as I got there, but Alex stayed the duration and danced all night. I had never seen that side of him before that day he danced, and I watched him for a while. I saw a lot of ladies throw themselves at him, but he gently declined them. Deep down, I wished I could be a party person just for the weekend. Everyone woke up late on Saturday. After all, most people were hungover. Alex woke up quite early, though. He hadn't drank last night. He doesn't drink or smoke, and that's one rule he's lived with his whole life, and that didn't change because of the party. He got up and prepared for the activities of Saturday. Saturday was a fun day for others, but for me, I would always remember it as the day that ruined both marriage and life. It started out early for me, but late for almost everyone else. I made breakfast for Alex and we brushed over some basic routines as we prepared for the rest of the day. It was noon, and we all went hiking for about 3 hours. By the time we were back, we freshened up and got ready for the evening BBQ, which then turned into our game night. That was the main event of the hangout. Every board game I could think about was available, and I was great at board games. I played them for a while, and after a couple of wins, I moved on to the group games. There were so many games being played, but I settled with a group of 10 people. Alex wasn't in that group, but Frank was. I wasn't aware of the game to be played yet, and once they started, I wanted out. It was truth or dare. I was confused about staying or going, but decided to stay because I have lived a mediocre life, so no truth could be embarrassing. And I thought no one would dare me to do something out of line as they knew my position and marriage status. Anyway, the game started out soft. Some pretty basic things were asked until someone dared to take off his shirt, and he did. I knew things were only going to get heated from then on. Some dirty dares passed around until it was my turn. I was to dare someone, and I dared her to take off her shirt, which she did without hesitation. I honestly thought she wasn't going to. Turns passed around till it was her turn, and she dared me to kiss Frank. Now everyone had some dare while I took a shot for the first time I was dared. I am not a heavy drinker, and I had never drank before up until that point. I don't know if it was the drink I took, but I was definitely feeling more hyped than ever. When I heard the dare, I thought about it for a few minutes. I knew as much as this was a party, this was a work party, and though Alex was not here, there was a huge probability of him finding out. I wasn't able to make up my mind, and so I had to take another shot. After the second shot, I was definitely drunk. I couldn't think straight anymore, and no matter how hard I tried to control my body, it was difficult. By the time the game had gone round again, and it was right before my turn was Silas's turn. Silas was a company employee and a college student. He was in his finals at the time, and before I knew what was happening, Silas was to dare Frank, and he dared him to kiss me. Now Frank had a lot to drink too, and was definitely already feeling it. Frank made his way to me while I just started looking lost. Before I knew what was happening, Frank's lips were all over mine. Everything got so dizzy and I passed out after that. I saw Alex in the distance running over to me where I was before I passed out. I did not know what happened, but I woke up the next morning next to Alex in our room. I asked him, but he wouldn't talk much to me. Sunday's event went by without me because I stayed in the room. I had remembered what happened between myself and Frank, and I was not only embarrassed, I also suspected that Alex saw us, and this made me scared. Alex was someone who didn't like to open up much when something happened. He preferred to solve it on his own and stay locked up in his head till he was able to sort it. And this didn't only make me scared, it made me worry about him. But I knew Alex always did whatever he set his mind to do, which only worried me more because that made it extremely difficult to get him to change his mind when he made a decision. I knew Alex very well, and I knew finding out would ruin our relationship. Alex didn't speak to me much on Sunday even after he got back from the event of the day, and it was time to leave. Everyone left on Sunday evening and the drive back home was a long one. I decided to force myself to believe that he'd understand because, after all, it was a mistake. But I was wrong. When we got home, Alex told me that he knew everything. In our 4 years of marriage, that would be our first argument. In my head, I'd hoped he'd understand that it was just a silly kiss that happened while we were drunk. Besides, it was Frank who came to me, but he didn't listen. Frank wasn't picking calls either. A few weeks into the new year had passed, and I hadn't seen Frank since the party. I was hoping he'd come and clear the air as things hadn't been going well in my marriage ever since. Alex and I started having issues because we have not been able to move on, and my once peaceful marriage has now become something else. After working together with Alex for 4 years, he decided to let me go from the company. He's the owner and CEO, and so his call is final. He sent over some divorce letters to me too a few weeks ago, just a few days after my birthday. I turned 26 and I couldn't believe that my husband was going to divorce me because of a silly kiss. We got to court after signing the papers, and of course he got to keep his company and his house while I got nothing. He took all the money and left me with nothing. Update. Everything happened so fast it seemed like a bad joke or bad dream I can't wake up from. After working for 4 years, I was able to accumulate some money, and I'm still living off that. But I know I'm going to have to find something else to do very soon. I moved out of my husband's house, and I'm now back with my mom. I barely have anything left, and I'm beginning to feel like a burden to my family again. It's been 6 months after the divorce, and I still see Alex's company on the news doing well and smashing goals. He filed a restraining order on me after I tried to talk things out with him a month ago. I haven't gotten any new jobs since I left that one, and I have also not been able to reach Frank ever since. I still love Alex so much, and I really want to get back with him, but I know that's like a dream that had not come true. I regret my actions, and I wished I didn't even leave the room that Saturday. Alex, if you're reading this, I'm sorry, and I know that what I did was wrong. I still love you, and I miss you more than anything. I am still struggling to move on. I've tried to start over, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I am still somehow tied to my ex-husband. I really have not felt drawn to anyone else, and I cannot stop thinking about the life we had built together and how it has all come crashing down. As time has gone on, I am trying to rebuild my life, and of course, time has healed me a little. I still feel shattered by what could have been. My sister and mom have been crucial for me, as they've been my support too. Of course, I still feel guilty for the end of what could have been, but I am beginning to come to terms with it. Of course, I'm scared of the uncertainty of the future, as I'm still young and the rest of my life is longer than the one I've lived, but don't think I can recover from this anytime soon. Again, Alex, I love you, and it was just a stupid kiss. I really wished we could have worked out and things went differently. I would give anything to have what we had again, and if by a chance you do come across this, please forgive me. Ladies, don't just kiss people on nights out or because of a dare when you're married or dating. Found out about my long-distance relationship with rich guy and decided to kick me out. Hi, Reddit. Longtime fan of this app. I am coming on here today to share my story about a very sad event that occurred recently. My boyfriend dumped and kicked me out because he found out about my long-distance relationship with another guy. Now, first of all, before you judge me, I have already judged myself and I know that I am guilty. I am not here to be judged or to seek solace or advice. I am here to share my story and use here as a medium to vent. Also, it would be a plus if someone or some cheater somewhere were to see my story and learn from it. Some backstory so you understand where I am coming from. My name is Haley, and I met my boyfriend Skylar in high school. Skylar was a total package. Blonde hair, blue eyes, extremely smart, and captain of the football team. Everybody liked Skylar, and everybody wanted to be seen with him. I, on the other hand, was the total opposite. I was a geek, and not a smart geek either. I was one of the dumb ones. I wasn't very attractive, I was relentlessly bullied, and so I had bad self-esteem issues, made worse by the fact that I was severely failing in school. I even developed eating issues, and it only got worse for me. And then, amazingly, like out of those movie scenes where something quirky brings together the handsome male lead and the weird, geeky romantic interest, Skylar came along. Except my story was absolutely real. Skylar came along. Since my grades were failing, my mom called in a favor with Skylar's mom and got him to tutor me. It was amazing. At first, Sky was very professional about it. He would come after school, help me for an hour or so, and then leave. My mom paid him, of course. However, as time went on, he started hanging out with me more and genuinely wanted to be my friend. He wanted to be seen with me. He didn't feel embarrassed by me. Within a few days of hanging out with Skylar, my reputation skyrocketed. There was no more bully, name-calling, and pranks. Skylar genuinely cared for me, and he made sure to protect me. A few months after hanging out and we were dating, Skylar absolutely transformed me. He made me start paying attention to my appearance as I wanted to look good for me. He never criticized me or said anything about my appearance, but years of low self-esteem made me overthink everything. I started getting into makeup more, getting better clothes, and styling my clothes well. I also started working out, and I got into very good shape. In fact, I was 100 times better looking than before. Years later, and currently I am 25 years old. Same thing with my boyfriend, or should I say ex-boyfriend, as he has dumped me. We started living together years ago in college. All this backstory is just so you get a sense of what I and my boyfriend have been through and how much we improved. Unfortunately, despite Skylar's best efforts, my studies never improved much, and honestly, I think that is as a result of a lack of concentrated effort on my part. And after getting my dream body, I became obsessed with maintaining it. Every energy and effort I had went into maintaining my beauty, so little effort was left for books. Skylar tried his best, and honestly, it was only due to that best that I graduated college and even high school. I barely passed, and now I regret it. You'll understand why later. I had always dreamed of being a trophy wife. Maybe it is due to all those years of bullying and being ignored by the opposite gender. But I grew to enjoy attention. I wanted to be someone's trophy wife. I wanted to be a complete stay-at-home mom. I honestly envisioned a life where I could just stay home and relax and take care of the kids while my husband would work and provide well for us. Now that I think about it, that was a very stupid idea. But I honestly did not know better then. Skylar was trying his best. He was earning well, but not as well as I wanted. I was a little bothered by it, but Skylar was so well set up that I knew that in a few years he would be earning a lot more. Also, he did a bit of freelancing on the side, and he was well sought after and never ran out of clients. So all in all was well. Sky also took care of all the bills in the house and also took care of me and my expenses, like skincare, wardrobe changes, shoes, bags, and of course he paid fully whenever we went out with our friend group or alone. I was a very quiet and reclusive person back then in school, but that was as a result of my low self-esteem and appearance. After I took care of myself more, I started becoming way more social, and Sky encouraged it. Everyone in our friend group was jealous as we had a seemingly perfect relationship, especially the girls. They envied the fact that I didn't work, but was so well taken care of by my boyfriend. Of course, Sky and I had issues about this, but all I could get was a minimum wage job as I barely graduated, and had never worked in my life, so he let it be. Since I was home all day while Sky worked except when I went out with friends, I started getting more into games, most especially IMVU. I loved IMVU. I reveled in the fact that I could be anybody on there. But anybody that has played IMVU knows that it costs money to actually enjoy the game. I started needing more money from Sky. I wanted to be absolutely fabulous, not only in the game, but also in real life. And that meant steady wardrobe changes, new and expensive stuff, and so on and forth. Sky was willing to a certain degree. Sky often thought my requests were unreasonable, especially when it came to spending money on IMVU for virtual badges and clothes. While he was okay with giving me some cash for gaming, he thought a lot of it was just silly. He was saving up for a house and didn't want to waste money on things he considered unnecessary. But I disagreed. I mean, he had already saved up way more than we needed for the down payment on the house. So why couldn't I have a bit of fun with the extra cash? It caused tension between us because while he was all about being smart with money, I just wanted to enjoy myself a little. That's where I really messed up. One day, while I was playing on IMVU like usual, I noticed someone had gifted me some clothes. I was thrilled because it was something I really wanted and had on my wish list. I had been waiting for Sky to give me some cash so I could buy it, but he wasn't handing out money like before. He was all about saving up for our future, which I thought was kind of unreasonable considering how much he already had saved. But whenever I tried to argue, he'd just tell me to get a job if I wanted more money for gaming. He had a point, and it shut me up every time. I knew deep down that I should get a job, but I didn't want to. So I slid into the DMs of the person who gifted me the clothes to thank them, and we ended up chatting. His name was Jason, and he was 30 years old. We hit it off pretty quickly and found we had a lot in common. It felt easy to connect with him, and he was more than willing to give me more clothes. As I got more involved with Jason outside of IMVU, I spent a lot of time chatting with him. He was kind of full of himself, but he kept sending me cool stuff and even some money. This made me forget about any concerns I had about his personality. Meanwhile, my boyfriend Skylar started noticing that I was acting different. Instead of paying attention to him, I was always on my phone talking to Jason. Skylar got worried when he saw all the packages arriving at our door and the extra spending on our bank account. He asked me where all the money was coming from, and I didn't know how to explain. I made up a story about freelancing to make it seem like I was contributing to our finances. Skylar didn't buy it, though, and I could tell he didn't trust me. But I stuck to my story, using his own suggestion that I find a job against him to justify my lies. As my relationship with Jason grew, so did the distance between Skylar and me. I found comfort in Jason's attention and gifts, even though deep down, I knew I was hurting Skylar and our future together. Jason hinted that he'd be willing to give me even more money if we took our relationship to the next level. At first, I was skeptical about mixing money with romance, but then it dawned on me. Jason lived states away. A long-distance relationship with him seemed like the perfect solution. It meant I could enjoy the perks without having to deal with the complications of a traditional relationship and cheating on Skylar. So, despite my initial doubts, I agreed to take things further with Jason. As Jason and I kept going, he kept sending me money. A lot. And me, being not so smart, just kept spending it all on fancy stuff like bags, shoes, and clothes. Instead of thinking about saving or investing the cash, I just went wild with it, chasing after the high of owning expensive things. With each purchase, I transformed into this glitzy, glamorous version of myself. But while I was looking all fancy, I was actually being pretty dumb about money. I didn't think about saving for the future or anything like that. Nope, I just blew it all on stuff that made me look good in the moment. Our friends were all green with envy, thinking Skylar was the one behind all my swanky new gear. Skylar himself was kind of puzzled by the sudden change in my spending habits. But since I wasn't really asking him for much money anymore, he figured it wasn't hurting anyone. So why argue, right? Plus, it meant he could stash away even more cash for our future goals, like buying a house, investing, and even saving for the raining days. But here's the thing. While everyone thought I was living it up thanks to Skylar's generosity, the reality was a bit more complicated. Behind the scenes, Jason was the one greasing the wheels of my flashy lifestyle. And while Skylar might have been cool with the whole situation, I was skating on thin ice, blindly chasing after luxury without thinking about the consequences. For a while, things seemed to be smooth sailing with Jason, but then he started getting pushy. He brought up the idea of flying over to see me, but I wasn't keen on the idea. Mind you, we both live in the United States, just we live in different states. Sure, I enjoyed Jason's money, but my heart belonged to Skylar. I'd known him my whole life, and I adored him. Plus, he took such good care of me. If it came down to it, there was no question. I'd choose Skylar over Jason any day. Besides, when I compared their looks, Skylar was like a Greek god, while Jason, Well, let's just say he didn't quite measure up in the looks department. But it wasn't just about looks. The thought of lying to Skylar and sneaking off to see Jason filled me with dread. Skylar was no fool. He'd see through any lie I tried to spin in a heartbeat. Plus, he knew all my friends and family, so there was no way I could pull off a secret rendezvous without raising suspicion. So I kept putting off Jason's visit, coming up with one excuse after another. I told him I was busy with work, even though I didn't work, or that I had family obligations to attend to. Anything to buy myself more time and avoid him flying down to see me. It seems my lies couldn't hold up forever. My vanity blinded me to the truth, and Skylar's suspicions finally reached a breaking point. And then it happened. One night when I was fast asleep, Skylar took a dive into my phone. He must have sensed something was off and decided to investigate. He didn't stop there, though. He went through my laptop and even checked out my IMVU account. Skylar's no slouch. He connected the dots between my love for the game and the sudden gifts and money from Jason. Every message I exchanged with Jason was laid out before him, showing him the truth I'd been hiding. I can only imagine the pain he went through right there. And I can only imagine the mix of emotions running through Skylar's head. Anger, hurt, disbelief. Realizing that the person he trusted most had been lying to him must have hit hard. Skylar didn't waste any time waiting for me to wake up on my own the next morning. He startled me awake by pouring a glass of water right onto my face. I practically jumped out of my skin. Well, I definitely screamed my lungs out. Confused and drenched, I demanded to know what the heck he was thinking and why he'd pulled such a stunt. But he didn't even glance at me. He didn't say a word in response. Instead, he just coldly ordered me to pack up my stuff and leave. At first, I was completely bewildered by Skylar's abrupt demand. But when he finally turned to face me and uttered those damning words about knowing about Jason, I felt like the ground could have opened up and swallowed me whole right then and there. It was like everything came crashing down in an instant. In a desperate attempt to salvage the situation, I begged and pleaded with Skylar, insisting that I'd never physically cheated on him because I'd never even met Jason in person. But Skylar wasn't having any of it. He saw right through my feeble excuses and laid it out plain and simple. I'd been emotionally cheating on him with Jason. Accepting money from Jason while lying about my relationship status? To Skylar, that was betrayal, plain and simple. And in his eyes, that was cheating. I tried everything I could think of, but Skylar wasn't having it. Tears were streaming down my face as I begged him to listen. But he just kept packing my stuff like he was on a mission. He didn't even look at me as he spoke, his words hitting me like a ton of bricks. He told me I should be grateful he didn't kick me out the night before. It felt like a punch to the gut, realizing how close I'd come to losing everything because of my mistakes. As I watched him pack up my life, I knew deep down that things would never be the same between us. Skylar didn't waste any time. After packing up all my belongings, he unceremoniously tossed them out onto the porch. With a stern expression, he swung the door wide open and pointed outside, giving me no room for argument. It was crystal clear. He wanted me gone, and he wanted it now. I couldn't argue with Skylar's firmness. Tears kept flowing down my cheeks as he insisted I leave. He made it clear. Either I walked out willingly or he'd have to push me out, but he wouldn't lay a hand on me. Knowing things could escalate if I didn't leave peacefully, I swallowed my pride and stepped outside. Sitting on the porch with all my stuff, waiting for the Uber, felt like forever. I couldn't help but feel the stares of my nosy neighbors, wondering what was going on. Yep, there I was, all my stuff strewn across the porch like some kind of chaotic yard sale. And you better believe the neighbors were curious. They couldn't help but peek out their windows or crane their necks to see what the fuss was about. Honestly, I couldn't even blame them. If the roles were reversed and I saw something like this happening in my usually quiet neighborhood, I'd be nosy too. I'd probably be one of the first to poke my head out the window and try to catch a glimpse of the drama unfolding next door. After what felt like an eternity, the Uber finally pulled up, and I hastily loaded my belongings into the car. Skylar had long closed the door, and there was no goodbye, no last glance, just silence. As the car pulled away from the curb, a wave of defeat washed over me. It was like every ounce of strength had been drained from my body. I sat there in the back seat, feeling lost and utterly alone. I didn't even know where to go from there. I had no plan, no destination in mind. All I knew was that I couldn't stay here, not after what had happened. Skylar wouldn't allow it, so with a heavy heart, I realized my only option was to return to my parents' house, with my tail tucked firmly between my legs. Arriving at my parents' house, I felt even more defeated than before. It was like every ounce of strength had been drained from my body, leaving me feeling utterly exhausted. I was so out of it that the Uber had to remind me we'd reached our destination. Stepping out of the car, I was hit with another blow. Our joint accounts had been completely drained. I couldn't even pay the Uber driver. It was a harsh reminder of just how dire my situation had become. With no other options left, I had to swallow my pride and go inside the house to ask my parents for help. Skylar had control over our joint account, and every penny in there was rightfully his. We had separate individual accounts too, his for savings, mine for the money Jason sent me. But those were of no help now. I couldn't blame Skylar for draining the joint account. After all, it was his money. He'd always been the one to handle our bills and expenses, while I spent what I had from Jason's gifts. But now, with nothing left to my name and no way to even pay for a ride, I realized just how dependent I'd become on Skylar's generosity. It was a humbling experience, to say the least, and one that left me feeling more lost and alone than ever before. My arrival at my parents' house must have been a shock for everyone. I could see the surprise in my brothers' and parents' faces as they took in the sight of me with all my belongings. They probably had a million questions racing through their minds, but when they saw the exhaustion etched on my face, they decided to hold off on the interrogation. Instead, my mom wasted no time in whipping up something for me to eat. It was a simple gesture, but it meant the world to me in that moment. After filling my stomach, I didn't waste any time. I headed straight to bed, feeling like I could sleep for 1,000 years. Despite the chaos swirling around me, there was a sense of comfort in being back home, surrounded by my family's love and support. Honestly, as I drifted off to sleep, I knew that no matter what happened next, I wouldn't have to face it alone, and that made me so happy. When I woke up, I didn't even need to explain what had happened to my parents. They had assumed I had a fight with Skylar and decided to leave, but they were puzzled because they knew we never fought like that. However, while I was catching up on some much-needed sleep, Skylar had taken matters into his own hands and called my parents. He wasted no time in filling them in on the whole situation. When my parents tried to defend me, Skylar abruptly ended the call. But that wasn't all. Skylar went one step further and sent them screenshots of everything, laying out the whole messy truth for them to see. Waking up to that reality was a harsh reminder of just how much damage had been done. There was no hiding from the truth now, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of shame at the thought of my parents seeing me in such a light. My parents were really disappointed in me. They absolutely loved Skylar. He'd been with me since high school, supporting me through thick and thin. Skylar even helped me deal with bullies back then, which meant a lot to me. So when my parents found out what happened, they didn't hold back. For the next hour, they laid into me, scolding me like there was no tomorrow. It hurt, knowing I'd let them down and messed things up with Skylar. Their disappointment was like a punch to the gut, and I felt lower than low. It was a tough wake-up call. It reminded me of the mess I'd made and the trust I'd broken. My parents tried to find a silver lining in the mess. They said I was lucky because I never took things to a physical level with Jason, and we never met face to face. They believed this gave us a chance to fix things. They came up with a plan: wait a few days for Skylar to cool off, then stage an intervention. We'd all plead with him to give me another chance. As part of the deal, I'd promised to delete my IMVU account and even all my social media. It stung, especially since I had a decent following online. But honestly, I'd have done anything to win Skylar back. While waiting for the right moment to talk to Skylar, my parents urged me to take it easy and rest up. They also pushed me to keep messaging Skylar, begging for forgiveness. When I finally checked my messages, I saw that Skylar had dropped a bomb in our group chat by posting the screenshots. It was like he'd exposed me to everyone. There was shock all around, but deep down, I sensed that some of them were secretly relieved. They'd always been jealous of me and Skylar. Feeling overwhelmed by it all, I decided to bail from the group chat and block all those fake friends. They were never really there for me when it counted. And then I gingerly crawled back into bed, seeking solace from the mess that had become my life. For a few days, my routine was pretty simple: eat, sleep, and send desperate messages to Skylar. Even though he didn't reply, the fact that he hadn't blocked me kept a glimmer of hope alive. After a week passed, my parents decided it was time to make a move. We headed to Skylar's apartment, unsure if he'd even be there. The first time we went, he wasn't home, and we had to leave empty-handed. But this time, luck was on our side. When we arrived, Skylar was actually there. It was the first time we'd seen him since everything went down. Skylar looked exhausted, but he was still as good-looking as ever. Despite feeling guilty and sad, seeing him there made me fall for him all over again. I regretted my mistake more than ever. Even in his tired state, Skylar was nice to my parents. He welcomed them into his place with open arms. It was tough seeing him deal with the mess I'd made, and I wished I could take it all back. But it was also a wake-up call, reminding me of the importance of making things right. No matter how much my parents pleaded, Skylar wouldn't budge. He flat out refused to give me another chance, listing off all the ways I'd let him down. He didn't mince words, calling me out for not pulling my weight around the house despite not having a job. It was a harsh reality check, hearing all my shortcomings laid bare like that. Skylar made it crystal clear that forgiveness wasn't in the cards, and he advised me to accept it and move on before things got even worse. It stung like hell, but deep down I knew he was right. Leaving Skylar's place was tough. I was sad and heartbroken, but I tried to comfort myself with the thought that I still had Jason to fall back on. Sure, Jason wasn't exactly the Prince Charming type like Skylar was, and I didn't love him like I loved Skylar. But he was loaded, and I figured I could use him until I found someone better. I hadn't been responding to his messages during the whole ordeal with Skylar, but now I reached out. I didn't have to wait long for a reply, but it wasn't what I expected. Jason's response hit me like a ton of bricks. He basically told me to never message him again and called me a liar. Skylar had gotten to him, and now I was left with nothing and no one to turn to. So, what I'm trying to say is, cheating isn't worth it. Losing Skylar hurts even more because he had set us up so well, and our future looked promising. But now, because of my actions, I've lost him for good. It's a painful reminder that betraying someone's trust can cost you everything, even a future you once dreamed of.